How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Buddy's House of Horror podcast, and welcome to the final episode of the 2024 Buddy's House of Horror podcast marathon. It's Halloween, and we're talking about HauntedWeen, one of my holy grail horror films, a film I've wanted to watch for many, many years, and I finally checked that off of my list today. And I'm just going to get right to the show for you guys. So if you guys haven't already, please make sure you're subscribing to the show wherever you're listening to the show, whether it be Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Make sure you're leaving me a 5-star rating, a review, a comment, subscribing over on YouTube, and telling all of your friends within the spooky realm about the premier horror podcast on the internet, Buddy's House of Horror podcast. And with that, we're going to get right to the show. Again, happy Halloween, everybody, and happy HauntedWeen. It's time to get spooky. How is it going, boys and ghouls? Happy Halloween, or should I say happy HauntedWeen. We're back here again with another episode of Hidden Horror. Of course, I'm Buddy, your humble ghost host, and I'm here with one half of the no-class Night of the Trivial Dead horror champions, Midnight Miles.
Here we are, boys and ghouls.
And of course, I am the other half. We are the champions. So.
Thank you for making that obvious. But he's like, hold on. I was part of that, too. Well, we've made it through this month, and we've made it through. You'll have to refresh my memory. How many episodes?
This is episode 5. It's episode 5.
Flying by. What's up, man? I know we're gonna kind of get into. Which, I mean, you already kind of name dropped the title, but and obviously, if there's people reading the podcast, I don't know what it is too. But brief 1 or 2 minutes. What do you think of your October? How was your spooky season? Since this will be the last one we do for a bit.
October has been really cool. Like we just said. Well, I mean,
solid review.
It's a solid review. I mean, like we said, horror trivia was a very fun night. Of course, went to some haunted houses. Of course, went to pumpkin patches. There's just a lot. I mean, October is my favorite month out of the year. The Halloween season is my favorite season of the year. So just in general, this month, and I don't know if you feel the same way, it's a very stressful month because you're trying to fit so much shit in that you want to do. But I don't know, this is just the happiest month out of the year for me every year. So
I think Halloween, even though I mean September can be included in this. Thank God it kind of is, since now like holidays start to get like merch or shows or stuff ramped up usually a month or two before it happens, so you do get a little bit of an extra spooky season. But I feel like I did not do as much as I would have liked or wanted in October, but life is fucking busy, man. We always say that on these. I mean, look, we already just said we're on our 5th episode of this already. It feels like we just started it. But the weather's been awesome. I still enjoy some of my warm days, especially because being in Ohio, I think that, you know, the winter is very long and tedious. So I've enjoyed seeing the leaves change faster than the past few years.
The leaves change very fast. The leaves were hitting those autumnal colors like in mid-September pretty much. One thing Ohio has to stop doing, and it's really fucking with my allergies all the time. I like that it's warm. I don't like where it's 90 one day. Like today was 87 degrees at one point, and then tomorrow it'll be like in the 40s. Like this happens constantly.
It's very rough on your body.
Yes.
But I'm going to try to watch, because the spooky season's never really fully over for you and I, especially, yeah. You know. I think that's what the thing is, where it's like, I think some people like, oh, it's Halloween, now I can get into this stuff. Around me, I'm like, it's mid-April, it's midnight, I'm watching some fucked up horror film. Yeah. Like, it never truly ends, but it feels nice to be in the true season where you, I guess, should be.
I like
watching
when
this
it's
stuff.
ramped up. Like, I like when
Yeah.
you can go outside, it looks like Halloween. I like when you can walk into a store, there's decorations everywhere, stuff like
Yes.
that. Obviously, there aren't haunted houses open up all year long. So yeah, I mean, I enjoy October, but yes, the spooky season never really ends. Just like hidden horror never really ends. I mean, there'll be episodes coming out after this eventually.
We
But
kind of hinted. We got to stay loyal. I think sometime after the new year we're gonna have a few episodes. I'm just throwing that out there because I did kind of say I think that's what we were thinking about
yeah,
doing after.
yeah, but this is obviously today is October 31st, so this will be the last one.
This
today.
will be the last one. Probably this will be the last one. I'm assuming that you will hear at least of hidden horror in 2024.
2024.
Had to think about what year it was for a second there. Well, anyways, I'm glad that we've done this. Just a little sidebar in the middle. I'm glad that we have given this a shot, and it's been really fun, and kind of experiencing this first round of films that we've both been able to pick. It's been great. Honestly, it's been everything I've wanted it to be. I think today, for me, what we watched was kind of like peak of like wanting to do this, because I think I've read a couple little excerpts online about this. Never seen a trailer. I didn't even know. I didn't really know almost anything about this. So this for me was the core of hidden
of
horror.
what the show's all about.
Yes.
So, just to kind of get into the background of this a little bit. So, obviously, we mentioned the film is HauntedWeen, as alluded to. You have read the title of this episode already, so you know what we're talking about. So, this film was the stuff of legend for me for a long time. So, the way I became introduced to this film is when I started being real close friends with Jared. And Jared, as you know, not so much now, he's slowed down a little bit in recent years, but huge into VHS collecting. Him and his buddies, your friends as well, are really into that scene. And so I had heard about this film a lot. Like, they had said that this film was like an underrated masterpiece. It's one of those films that's only on VHS. It's the only way that you can see it. We watched the 20th anniversary, which was released on DVD as a sort of like as a supply and demand kind of thing. Like, the director was just kind of running it through a website.
Yeah.
So you could go on. It's essentially like made to order. Like, you could order the DVD for like $10. Unfortunately, since then, the director has passed away. No. So production of the DVDs has also stopped. So there's really no solid way to really watch this. It gets uploaded and taken off YouTube all the time. But now even the DVDs, I mean, obviously, if you were to find a copy of this on VHS, it's going to be quite expensive. The DVDs are now like, you go to HauntedWeen.com, the DVDs are even like $100 now to get this, because it's just, it's a very rare film. So, I'm glad I've finally been able to check this out. As I said, I did get this on DVD a long time ago. Glad I did at the time, because now you can't really get them. But it's kind of just been sitting on the shelf for a few years, waiting for the perfect time to watch it. And when we came up with the idea for hidden horror and what we were talking about, I knew I wanted to do this one specifically for the episode that came out on Halloween. Because this was my first time actually watching it as well. So it's a film I've been wanting to watch for upwards of 10, 12 years at this point.
Oh, yeah.
So, glad I was finally able to watch it. So,
I think that as far as this Halloween season, as far as stuff I've watched at home or in your home or wherever, I think this is probably my favorite thing I've watched, and that was completely unexpected before I came over today, because I knew so little about it. And honestly, this was a perfect film to like end this first, I guess, season, quote unquote, of podcasts for the hidden horror. I mean, this is everything, honestly, that I am looking for when it comes to like horror gems and stuff like this. It's kind of that weird. I'm not gonna steal all your thunder. I'll let you talk about it, but it's kind of, you told me it came out in like 91, filmed in that, like, maybe 1990, 91. So that weird time where things are transitioning between the decades. Kind of has a little bit of like everything that I like. There's a heavy music presence in the film. I'm gonna let you go and have your say on it a bit more. I'm gonna come back to the music thing, but honestly, I hate to use the words blown away, but this is exactly what I needed tonight.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest,
I guess just to talk about like the plot a little bit. So it opens up with what we can assume is the 70s, because at some point there's a 20-year time skip of a haunted house. There's someone who's working basically the front gate where people come in to park their cars, and everyone's kind of roasting this kid. They're making fun of his mask, kind of making fun of him. They're saying he's too young to actually work inside of the haunted house, so he has to stay outside. And he essentially murders someone that night. Skip ahead to 20 years later, and it focuses on a fraternity who's trying to raise money so they can continue remaining a fraternity at their college. So a mysterious man shows up to their frat house, basically, gives them the keys to this haunted house, and they are essentially revamping the haunted house to make money for their fraternity. And then, of course, the gentleman with the keys, spoiler not spoiler, this was the killer from years ago, and he is back again to finally get what he wanted, was to be part of this haunted house. So he's doing it in a very realistic way, but he's finally achieving his dream of being in the haunted house, basically. So that's the general story.
Now, I guess since we're kind of... he said basically the entire plot. The thing I'll say is his mom... they make it seem in the beginning like this kid's mom either is like a co-owner or owns the house that the haunted house is at. And so his mom takes him away to prevent him being accused of the murder and stuff like that. I know we're really spoiling it here, but her death is kind of what triggers him to go back all these years later and do that.
That was a really great shot, by the way. So something, because I knew this was very low budget. It was shot on 16 millimeter film before it was transferred over to video. But I was kind of blown away about how well shot it was given the budget.
Yes.
Like in the scene you're mentioning, when the mother passes away in front of him, basically, there's like this really cool like tracking shot of his feet where it follows him like through the woods, up the stairs to the deck, and then over to her. And like when I was watching this, like I didn't watch any trailers for this either, but knowing how low the budget was, knowing that the people involved with this was basically their only film.
Right.
Like, I was blown away on how well it looked for what it was.
No, I honestly, everything, just as it was going on, even, I mean, the humor, I actually thought it was very funny. A lot of stuff, maybe some of the younger generations might not think it's so funny anymore, but there's just a ton of slapstick absurdity that...
The dialogue in this is something.
it's something. I mean, it has every classic horror trope. Naked chicks. I mean, you said fraternity, so beer drinking, parties. There's rock and roll. I want to say again, for them not having much of a budget, I thought the soundtrack, the overall like background music, and then even the music that played from the one band. I was like, this rules. Like, the whole music for the whole thing was good. Speaking of sound again, I actually thought the sound design, for considering how low budget it was pretty fucking good. I was waiting because the film kind of doesn't really get to a lot of like the killing and some of the deaths till maybe they're about 60% of the way through the film, just being honest. And I was like, all right, how are they going to film some of these deaths? Is this going to be just a little bit of a normal, just like stab movie, or like a slash here or there, some off-screen deaths. I mean, at this point, I was enjoying the film so much, just like getting to know the characters and kind of the overall atmosphere. We were all laughing, having a good time. I kind of almost didn't care like how gory or what it was. I still was like, I'm gonna have a good time with this. But I was honestly blown away too by some of the special effects shots they got and how good their blood looked. Honestly,
Yeah, yeah, especially given the budget, like the effects work was really good. I mean, some stuff they did off camera, but there was a lot of stuff where you actually kind of saw like a knife going in, or you saw a head twist and stuff like that.
I thought the camera tricks were, considering these are true independent filmmakers that hadn't done a lot. I thought the camera tricks were actually pretty well for the effects that they had.
Yeah. We talked about the writing. So this is obviously funny for the correct reasons. Like a lot of times you watch these low budget, like it could be like a shot on video thing, like films in this style, like Miles and I have seen a ton of them. And I will definitely say this one has you laughing for the right reasons. Like this one is a true horror comedy. They're cracking jokes. They're spitting one-liners.
Yes.
They didn't use wide-angle lenses, but there is at one point where like a guy's face will like come up and like you could tell they wanted to use like a ridiculous like wide angle for it.
Yeah.
So overall, I thought the comedy was very well executed. The film does sort of spin its wheels a little bit. Like you do, I mean,
yeah,
they're padding the run time just a little bit. Like it definitely could have been more like a 70-ish minute film, and I think it could have been like a little stronger. I still gave it 3.5 stars, but it could have maybe gotten like a 4 or something like that.
I also gave it 3.5 on Letterboxd. I think that, and maybe it's because I love coming of age films too, and kind of coming of age like college comedy. So I think maybe that kind of hit like. I think that they had, for myself, just the right amount of, okay, they have the love story bullshit or like the relationship issues, and then it cuts to some one-liners, smashing beer, and some music, and then it had like we didn't focus so long on certain aspects. Like as soon as one scene should have been wrapping it up, it did. They actually, it felt like they understood how to pace the film for this being their first film.
Yeah. Trying to think what else I was going to say.
I'll say what you're thinking of.
Yeah,
that. I wanna commend them for in the finale, and I'm not gonna spoil the whole finale or whatever, because we did talk, because there's some amazing shots, but I want to commend them for having so many different Halloween masks that the killer uses, even in those like he changes masks like 4 times for each time a new set of kids or families come into the haunted house.
So the one thing I was going to say that was slightly a critique for a film called HauntedWeen, I do wish, and like granted I don't know a ton about the production. I know where it was shot, because it obviously takes place in Kentucky. It was shot around like the Bowling Green type-ish area. I'm assuming they had to shoot this in summer or something, because it does not look like October at all.
That's
in
true.
the film.
That's true.
I wish they would have done a little bit of a John Carpenter thing where they at least put like decorations around the frat house, or like something that made it look like Halloween-y. Like the only time it really resembles the time it's taking place is in the finale. And I guess in the intro too, but that's 20 years prior, when they're actually at the haunted house. Like most of the time, they're on like a boat and everyone's completely topless or whatever. Like they're laying out at the beach.
That's
like it's very
critique.
obviously.
Yes. They're
summer.
sweating. You can visibly see everyone like pouring fucking sweat.
But I mean, I get it. I mean, you got to do what you got to do to get it made. But
I think I was so just. I think it had me with the pacing, where I was just so into how like funny or at times weird it was, that I didn't even think like, oh yeah, it's supposed to be fucking fall. They're in Kentucky. Kentucky's not that far from where we are. It definitely should be falling leaves or something, just. So yeah, that's a solid critique. I feel that. I didn't even put that together, honestly.
Yeah. This is a great film to put on if you and all your buddies are together. You're having a few drinks. Like I said, like we're all completely sober in this room currently, but
I know.
but we were laughing our ass off at some of these jokes in here, like the dialogue, like you can't even describe it without seeing it. There's at one point where basically the two lead girls are talking, and they're like, "We've been best friends for 7 weeks."
Yeah,
and she's just like dead serious.
And then they made. I will say in the beginning, if you are going to have drinks with your friends or whatever,
yeah.
they say the child's name. His name is Eddie. At least 9 to 10 times in the opening like prologues area. Do a drinking game. See
So you'll be trashed during the intro because they say his name 100 times, but then they never say it again the rest of the film.
No.
So if you're taking shots at the beginning, it'll carry you through to the end for sure.
Yes. I don't know, man. I think I saw on Letterboxd. I think someone posted it on Tubi.
At this point, it might be on some sort of streaming.
So, I mean, if people are looking to watch, I just happened to see that right before we recorded. But for me myself, I honestly it. I mean, I think if you're listening to these podcasts, you've listened to multiple podcasts we've been on together. I think you kind of get our sensibilities. I think if you have similar tastes, especially after a couple vices, I would highly recommend this for the October season, or any time of year, or honestly, probably a nice July day, like when they shot this film.
Yeah.
What do you got? What do you got? Some more thoughts on it before we wrap up in a bit?
I don't really have too many more thoughts other than what we've said already. I mean, I really loved the film as well. I don't want to say it was a little bit overhyped for me, but again, I had heard from the guys for years how good this film was, and it didn't disappoint, but I maybe was looking for just a little bit more. Just a little bit more.
We all have those. I mean, we all have those films. You know what I mean?
But that's just a very much a me thing. If you're watching this for the first time, you're hearing about it here, or Miles, who maybe read a couple articles and stuff, if you don't have that hype factor, this is a great time. I mean, I obviously still had an amazing time with it, so...
For you to give someone 3.5 star first watch.
3.5 stars is a very high rating for me. 3.5, it's tough. It's tough.
The true critic, Buddy Candela.
I don't know. I've been very generous this year. I've given out a lot of 4s. I gave Terrifier 4.5.
I know.
Can I tell you a secret?
Sure.
When I was in the lobby, I was debating giving it a 5. But I don't know if I could live with myself if I did that.
You might get ragged on by it too. Not me, because come on, I know that I see a lot of horror people.
Listen, it's the cool thing on the internet right now to hate on Terrifier 3. That's the cool, hip thing.
It's definitely the cool, hip thing.
But y'all are crazy. Film's a masterpiece.
We're going to go see it again
You had me
soon.
questioning myself if I would... Not you. Internet. You had me questioning myself if I was crazy for thinking this film was as good as it was. I'm seeing so many people saying, like, oh yeah, the gore was great, the story sucks, like, stuff like that. And I'm just like, you guys are wild.
I thought the story was good. I'm really looking forward to 4. I'm looking forward to 4 more than I was looking forward to 3.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, after, because they're starting to build some actual lore with, what art is and what's surrounding it. So
they're saying at least 1 to 2 more films, but they're gonna see where it takes them. So
at first I read something the first week. Oh, we're thinking about wrapping up after 4, and then it's like, oh, it made almost $40 million at the box office. Well, we better want to think about. We'll see where this goes. But anyways.
HauntedWeen, go check it out. Obviously, this is episode 5 of Hidden Horror. So if you haven't seen episodes 1 through 4 yet, make sure you go check those out.
Binge those.
On
the way to work, on the way home from work.
Check out, I mean, obviously I've had episodes coming out all month, so check out whatever episodes you missed. Miles has been on quite a few of them this year. Probably, this might be the most ever in October you've been on the show. Maybe.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I've had a good time. But it's not quite over yet.
It's not quite over yet. There'll be more episodes coming.
No, it's not quite over yet. Because I have a surprise for you.
Oh, God.
See, I have to keep him on his toes sometime. We said the format, some things might change, could change. Well, I am putting pressure on you in this moment.
Oh, God.
You have to announce.
He's going to his cooler. So whatever he's pulling out has been very cold the past couple of hours.
I am putting pressure on you to announce for the first time ever what we are going to be doing for next October season. We already alluded to it.
Everyone knows it's Hellraiser. Well, did you get me a copy of Hellworld? Is that what this is?
We are solidifying it nearly a year in advance. So, Merry Christmas, because I got you almost most of the way there through...
11 films on one DVD, and then the double feature.
Oh no, there's the prophecies. Don't.
The prophecy and Hellraiser. Okay.
So
it's got Hellworld on it. Thank God.
So I got you about 75% of the way through the series for next year.
Thank you. I needed this. This will save a lot of time.
See. I'm looking out for you. I look out for him here, you know?
So 6 Hellraiser films and then 5 from the prophecy.
And then there's bonus films. There's actually and a short film. So you're getting a load of content. Have you seen the original Prophecy?
Yeah.
With Christopher Walken? Okay,
yes.
I actually think it's great. I haven't watched it in a long time, but I loved it when I might have to come over if you watch a couple of those Prophecy sequels. I've only seen the second one, I think, or maybe the third one.
Damn, Miles might have solidified our next 2 rankings.
Oh my God.
With one DVD.
We could see, and we have a lot of time, we could just watch all 5 prophecy films and see how bad they... I think I've seen 1, 2, and 3, because they were on TV a bit when I was, like, real young. But then after the 90s, I swear to God, they never put those on again, even though they weren't that old. But I don't think I've seen... I think 4 and 5 were in the 2000s, but I don't think I've seen them.
Well, Miles, next time you have an uninterrupted 11 hours of free time, we will marathon the entire Prophecy franchise.
I mean,
all at once.
Don't threaten me with a good time in fucking 2025. But I wanted to say thank you again for all these rankings and all these things. And then I have suggested the Hellraiser series for a couple years now, but I also joke because there's a couple of them that are pretty bad. But now I have officially put the pressure on Buddy. So
we'll do it.
There we go. You heard it, ladies and gentlemen. Set in stone. We
might have to do a live commentary for Hellworld.
Oh my God. If you end up liking it as much as everyone else, then I'm fucking crazy.
Do people like it?
Dan and Joel and fucking Levi, aka Dabby, do. A bunch of people love Hellworld. They say it's like one of the best ones. I haven't seen it in a long time. I've seen it, I think, twice, 2 or 3 times, unfortunately. And
well, at some point in the next 12 months, brother, you're going to be watching it again.
This is going to be like when we get... You're going to see what's worse, how deep we get into the Saw franchise where we're uncertain, or how deep we get into Hellraiser.
I have a feel it's going to be tough because I don't know. A couple of the Nightmare ones are really bad. I'm trying to think. Do you think Hellworld might be the worst out of any of the films we would have watched for the show so far? Like, do you recall it being that bad? Or is there a Hellraiser film that's worse? I know you like to hate on Hellworld just because of the online RPG thing, but like, is that the worst one?
A lot of people think that the one after that, Revelations, the first one's really bad, but I honestly think that one's like... It doesn't have... It's hard because everyone's going to say that the 2 with Doug Bradley are absolute shit. You watched half of that one time at Wasteland. The one that one's basically like a serial killer Saw-esque Hellraiser, even though there are films in the series that are like that. I mean, I watched one of them and fell asleep towards the end twice earlier this year, so technically I need to rank it. I think I watched the one that's the think I watched Inferno. Inferno has the dude, the main actor from Nightbreed in it. That was his other big. We'll see.
I love me some Nightbreed.
I would say just go in with an open. I mean, even me going in with Hellworld. Maybe it's been probably 10 years since I watched it. The ones I've watched recently is I've watched the first 3 within the past couple years, and then spoiler, number 2 is one of my favorite horror sequels of all time. I think I've said on other podcasts and in my top 100 films. I mean, I love the second Hellraiser film, but
and this will be the first series that we do for our ranking where I'm going in almost completely blind because I've only seen the first 2.
Wow.
And then that part from Wasteland
which is funny because that was the last one before the reboot.
Yeah.
The reboot's on Hulu. That's the only way. So, I mean, they don't have a physical release yet. So, at least you'll be able to watch that. But, I don't know, man. Saw 5's pretty bad. So, I might find more enjoyment out of watching some of these Hellraiser sequels than Saw 5.
Well, only time will tell. Thank you again for this. Thank you for coming on the show all these times. And if you got nothing else,
that's it. I just had to surprise. I had to give you one last scare.
Hey, we're all entitled to one good scare on Halloween, my man. Yeah. Thank you for checking out all the shows this month. Go watch HauntedWeen. Go watch all the Hellraisers in advance so you can follow along with the ranking. And we will see you next time.
I will see you next year.
Well, that is about it for this time, you guys. I hope you enjoyed the final episode of the 2024 Horror Marathon. If you guys haven't already, please make sure you're subscribing. Wherever you listen to the show, make sure you're subscribing, hitting that like button, sharing the show with your friends, telling everybody about the premier horror podcast on the internet. Really, the only horror podcast on the internet. I am the only person with a horror podcast ever. So yeah, it's time for you guys to enjoy the remaining hours of your Halloween season. So take care and stay spooky.